What's up everyone, in this video I'll be taking a look at Myst VR for Oculus Quest. In the first part of the video it'll be about an 8-minute review where I break down the game in terms of the audio, the visuals, the gameplay and the longevity before giving a brief summary of my thoughts after I completed the game. The next part of the video will just be gameplay footage, a few minutes of me solving one of the puzzles right at the beginning of the game. Now obviously you don't have to watch that. If you're afraid of spoilers, you can just watch the review portion, which I've tried to keep as spoiler free as possible, so you won't see me solving any puzzles in the review portion of this video. So let's take a look. So if I had to give a very brief summary of my experience with Myst VR, is that it's a very good and solid entry into the Oculus Quest game store for those who love puzzle games, with two flaws that I think stop it from being great, but more on that later. Let's start by talking about the plot. So in this game you play the role of an unnamed person who stumbles upon a book titled Myst. Now as you read this book you discover that it creates portals into other worlds, in this case the island called Myst. So you travel to and explore the island of Myst, and on this island there are two coloured books, one red, one blue. These books hold the sons of someone called Artus. These sons are called Cirrus and Aknar. Now both sons are trapped within these books and you have to find the corresponding red and blue pages in order to free them. Now these pages can be found on the island of Myst but also scattered across 4 other islands. These islands are called ages and you reach them by travelling through additional portal books that you also find on the island of Myst by solving puzzles. Now these other islands or ages or worlds or whatever you want to call them are called the Selenitic Age, the Stone Ship Age, Mechanical Age and the Channelwood Age. So you travel to each of these ages, solving puzzles, finding pages and bringing them back to the island of Myst in order to free the brothers. Now there's more to the story than this with regard to the brothers. You'll find out more about them as you go through the game, and so I'll leave that for you to discover for yourself, but essentially that's the basic plot. So let's start by reviewing the gameplay visuals and sound. Now the visuals are quite nice. They're not the best graphics I've seen on the Quest, and there are moments when the textures seem to load a bit late, which can break the immersion a little bit, but otherwise the visuals are pretty good and the environments are really interesting and fun to explore. Now let's talk about sound. Now the sound, again, I'm happy to say, is every bit as good as the visuals. The little music clips that play when you enter an unexplored room just at the right time, and the sounds of the environment around you like dripping water, just makes it really atmospheric and immersive. And definitely a game you'd want to be playing with headphones due to the positional audio, which just creates sounds around you in a very realistic way. So the visuals and audio are fairly solid and there's no real major complaints there. But now on to the gameplay. So there are a few things that will determine whether you enjoy this game or not. First, you're going to have to enjoy puzzle games. That's pretty obvious. You also have to be the type of person that doesn't mind having a very solitary game experience, as for most of the game you're wandering around the island just by yourself. That is, unless you cast the game to your television and get some friends involved on the action, which is an awesome way to play this game. You must also be quite comfortable with being independent with a game that doesn't hold your hand. You are more or less left to explore with little to no guidance, and there are plenty of machines that you'll see along the way with levers, buttons that you just have to pull, press, prod, poke in order to see what they do. So to solve puzzles in this game, you'll have to be doing a lot of exploring and experimenting, and half the time you'll be experimenting without knowing exactly what you're doing, but eventually something will click and it will start to make sense. Now some people will enjoy this experimenting, trial and error approach to puzzle solving, whilst others will find it frustrating. But even though I enjoyed this game, there are two major gripes that I have. The first being no note-taking system. So there are occasions when you need to take notes, write down numbers. There was even one occasion where I needed to do some quite basic calculations, but in the game there's no way to take down notes. Now I hear the developer are adding this at some point, but for now I had to take off my headset, write things down, or look down the bridge of the nose on my headset and just write notes, which was incredibly immersion breaking and annoying. It's such a small thing, yet has such a big impact on the game. In my opinion, it's essential, so I'm really happy to hear that the developers will be implementing it at some point, although I don't know when that will be. Now my second major gripe is that some of the puzzles are quite obscure. And this was common in many point-and-click adventure games in the 90s. You'd come across a handful of obscure puzzles that you couldn't really solve unless you got lucky, as the solutions seemed quite random and required a leap of logic. And this is true of some of Myst's puzzles, and I do understand the developers want to keep it true to the source material. But it would have been great if they could have offered two modes. One mode which is as close to the original as possible for those die-hard fans or those who want to experience the game as it was back in the early 90s, and another mode which adds a few extra hints for those cryptic puzzles that some players regard as bad puzzle design due to their cryptic nature, because there were some occasions where I had to use Google in order to solve puzzles. But of course that could also be down to me, as I might not be as good a puzzle solver as some of you guys out there, and that's very true, but I don't think I would be the only one who'd find some of the puzzles that Myst has to be a bit cryptic. But I'm happy to say for the most part I really enjoyed the puzzles and I was able to solve them without any help. And the puzzles range from very simple puzzles where, for example, you have to press a few buttons, find a code and then use that code on some kind of a combination lock, to a lot more complicated and clever like physics-based puzzles or puzzles that require you to use your ears as well as your eyes to solve them. This game does require you to pay attention to all of the small details around you, and there will be points when you will feel hopelessly stuck, so just be prepared for that. Now we move on to longevity, and this is another strong area of the game. This game took me about 7 or 8 hours to complete, and there are also 4 alternate endings to explore, which adds a bit more to the game. You can also save your progress so that you can go back and explore all of those alternate endings without having to run through the entire game again. Now of course the length of the game will also depend on how fast or slow you solve those puzzles, but when it comes to Oculus Quest games it does offer you a fair amount of content for your money. So to summarize, this is a solid puzzle game. I actually really enjoyed my journey through Myst. As a new player to this game, Myst offers a puzzle experience like no other. It's really a very unique and interesting game that does translate surprisingly well into VR. The sometimes basic and overly cryptic puzzles do let it down a bit, but there were also plenty of interesting and thought-provoking puzzles in there too, and the strange, weird, alien-type environments and machines were really interesting to explore. You just never knew what you were going to find next, which made it immensely satisfying to explore the islands of Myst. Just don't be expecting to receive much hand-holding in this game, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your preference. So for the final part of this video, I'll be showing you some gameplay. Obviously there will be a spoiler in there as I do solve one puzzle, although it's a very basic puzzle right at the beginning of the game, so it won't give too much away if you do watch it and then go on to purchase and play the game yourself. So I hope you've enjoyed the review portion of this video. Thank you for watching. Do hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you liked it and would like to see more of this in the future, and I'll catch you next time. So this is my first time playing Myst VR. We'll see how far we can get. Obviously there will be some spoilers because I might be solving some puzzles. I might not, depending on how good I am at this game. Let's flip this switch. See if anything happens. Nope. Let's look around. Have this giant cog up here and it looks to be another switch. Just chuck that on. Maybe you need both switches turned on for something to happen. No. That might have done something, but if it has, I'm not sure what it has done. And by the way, I've got no strategy here. My strategy is basically just to play with everything I find and hope that something works eventually and I figure something out. We have this note on the rock. I left for you a message of utmost importance in our 4 chamber beside the dock. Enter the number of marker switches on this island into the imager, whatever that is, to retrieve the message. The 4 chamber beside the dock. Okay, we've got some kind of watchtower in the distance. We have what looks like a ship, and this another room here. So let's check this out, see what's inside. And we have a few things to play with. Alright, let's check this out here. What's this? So this appears to be a map, and it has this... Wow, okay, I don't know what that did, but that did something. Yeah, so I think that's the dock. That's the cog that we saw earlier. There's that rotunda thing we saw, and this is the building we must be in right now. And I don't know what that knob does yet, but I'm sure I'll find out at some point. We have a book here. We have some paintings, some more books. These, I don't know if that's a good thing. Oh, okay, so the bookshelf has opened up, and we can go down this passage here, find out what's down here. Looks like an elevator. Okay, we've got a bit of a problem here. I've gone to go out of this room, but the door has closed behind me, so I'm not sure how to get that open. Well, we've got another picture here. So that opened the secret door. I wonder if this will work. And free me, and that's right. So that closes behind me, and this opens the main door. Fantastic. So I managed to work something out. That's a start. So a lot of things in this game is just trial and error, trying things out, exploring, and eventually something hopefully will click. So where to next? Okay, so I think we're stuck already. The only clue that I have so far is that letter that said there's an urgent message in the forechamber next to the dock. And you put the number of switches in the imager. So number of switches, does that refer to those switches that I've been turning on that absolutely do nothing at this point? I don't know. Okay, I've just seen something in the distance here, something I missed at the start. This might be the forechamber that they mentioned in the letter, so let's check it out. I think that switch closes the door. This is very cool. Okay, well, let's press the big green button. That turns that thing off. We also have this here. Topographical extrusion test 40, marker switch diagram 47, water turbulent pool 67. What's this do? Okay, I can enter some numbers into there. So I forget what the other numbers were right now. I'll press the button. Okay. So I can change the different numbers. Settings dimensional imager. So that is what the letter referred to when it mentioned imager. Right, so we're getting somewhere. So I need to go back to that letter and remind myself what it said. Okay, let's read this letter again. I have left for you a message of utmost importance in our forechamber beside the dock, which I'm pretty sure is that chamber we just entered recently. Enter the number of marker switches on this island into the imager to retrieve the message. So, marker switches. I'm going to take a guess that it's these things here. And I think this is a puzzle that I can definitely do, because it only involves counting, and I can do that. Alright, so 1, 2, we have a third one there. I know we have one next to the rocket ship, just there. So 5th one here, 6th, and I saw this one earlier, just there, 7th, Is there any more? Yes, so 8. So I think that's all the switches. We have 8 switches. Marker switch, that's what it said in the letter, marker switch 47. Let's put that in, see what happens. Okay, I don't know if that did anything. Right, so that is a marker switch. I was probably meant to do that first, but I guessed it anyway. So we are pretty sure now that we have to count all of the marker switches, which I think is 8. Brilliant.
I have to leave quickly. Something terrible has happened. It's hard for me to believe.